Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it. Then let's evaluate together. The conference room at Carver Group's Manhattan headquarters was a damn circus. Camera flashes popped like gunfire, reporters shouted over each other, and the air reeked of sweat and cheap coffee. Amara Brooks stood at the center of it all, her curly hair dripping wet from the rain outside, her brown eyes blazing with fury. Her navy blazer clung to her frame, but she held her head high, a queen in a room full of vultures. Across the room, Jude Carver leaned against the wall, his face cold as marble, arms crossed over his Armani suit. He hadn't said a word, but his silence cut deeper than any accusation. "You think I'm a thief?" Jude, Amara's voice sliced through the chaos, sharp and unyielding. She clutched a stack of documents, her knuckles tight. "You think I married you for your damn money? Screw you." The room gasped as she hurled the papers at him. They fluttered to the floor like wounded birds, each one proof of her sacrifice: bank statements, property deeds, emails to investors. "I sold my fucking home to save your sorry ass, and you stand there like I'm the enemy." Jude's jaw clenched, his green eyes flickering with something: shock, guilt, maybe both. The reporters went wild, microphones thrusting forward, but Amara wasn't done. "You're not just blind, Carver. You're a coward." She turned on her heel, her boots clicking against the polished floor, and stormed out into the New York rain. The door slammed behind her, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. Jude stared at the scattered papers, his chest tight. One caught his eye: a deed for a Harlem brownstone, Amara's name crossed out, replaced by a buyer S. His throat burned. She sold her home. The room spun, and for the first time in 20 years, Jude Carver felt like he'd been punched in the gut 6 months earlier. The ballroom at the Plaza Hotel glittered like a damn chandelier. Crystal glasses clinked, laughter floated over the jazz band, and New York's elite milled about in their designer threads. Jude Carver stood by the bar nursing a bourbon, his salt and pepper hair catching the light. At 40, he was still the kind of guy who turned heads, tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that could have been carved from granite. But his eyes were cold, like he'd seen too much and trusted too little. The scandal that had rocked Carver Group 6 months ago, his ex-partner caught embezzling millions, still clung to him like a bad smell. The press called him the fallen king of real estate, and it pissed him off. He scanned the room, his gaze landing on a woman in an emerald green dress that hugged her curves like it was made for her, Amara Brooks. Her skin glowed a warm brown under the chandeliers, her curly hair piled high in a messy bun that somehow looked effortless. She laughed at something her sister said, her smile bright enough to light up the whole damn city. Jude's mother Eleanor had been harping about her for weeks. The perfect match, she'd said. A promise kept. Jude snorted into his drink. A promise, his ass. This was about saving face, not love. Amara caught his stare and raised an eyebrow. Unfazed, she sauntered over, her heels clicking, and leaned against the bar. "So, you are the guy I'm stuck with," she said, her voice smooth but laced with sass. "Hope you're less boring than your suit, Carver." Jude smirked, despite himself. "Keep your hands off my bank account, Brooks, and we'll be fine." She laughed, a sound that hit him harder than it should be. "Oh, honey, I'd rather rob a bank than deal with your ego. But if I'm signing up for this circus, I'm picking the ring. Deal." He raised his glass, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Deal. But Jude wasn't here for games. His mother had orchestrated this whole thing, dragging up a decades-old promise between their families. Amara's father, a real estate investor, had bailed out the Carvers during a financial crisis 20 years ago. In return, the families swore to unite through marriage. When Amara's dad died, Eleanor saw her chance. Jude needed a wife to clean up his image post-scandal, and Amara was the perfect choice, smart, poised, and, in Eleanor's words, a stabilizing influence. Jude didn't buy it. Nobody was that perfect, not without an angle. Amara, meanwhile, wasn't thrilled either. She'd built a career as a financial strategist, clawing her way up in a world that often looked down on black women like her. She didn't need a husband, especially not a grumpy millionaire who thought she was after his cash. But her mother's medical bills were piling up, and Eleanor had offered to cover them if Amara went through with the marriage. So here she was, playing a role she hated, trading her freedom for her mom's health. The next night, Amara's sister Lila threw a pre-wedding roast at their favorite dive bar in Brooklyn. The place smelled of beer and fried wings with neon signs buzzing over the jukebox. Lila, 28, and wiry, hopped onto a makeshift stage, her braids swinging as she grabbed the mic. "All right. Why all? Let's talk about my sister's new man," she said, grinning. "Amara is marrying Jude Carver, aka the Ice King. I'd rather date a toaster, at least it's warm," the crowd hooted, and Amara, sipping a rum and coke, laughed so hard she nearly choked. "You're gonna get me in trouble," Lila, she called. "Trouble girl." "You are marrying trouble," Lila shot back. "Jude thinks he's Jay-Z, but he's more like a grumpy accountant with a penthouse. Amara. Blink twice if you need me to bust you out of this." Amara rolled her eyes, but her smile faded. She loved Lila's humor. But the truth stung. This marriage was a deal, not a dream. She glanced at her phone, where a text from her mom glowed. "Thank you, baby. This means everything." Amara's chest tightened. She'd do anything for her mom, even if it meant tying herself to a man who saw her as a gold digger. Across town, Jude sat in his Upper East Side penthouse, the city skyline sprawling beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. The place was all marble and steel, sleek but soulless, like a showroom nobody lived in. Eleanor sipped tea across from him, her silver hair pulled into a tight bun. "You'll thank me for this, Jude," she said. "Amara's a good girl. She'll stabilize you. Clean up this mess with the press." Jude snorted, swirling his bourbon. "I married her. Mom, Don'd expect me to play happy husband. She's probably counting my dollars already." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Don't to be crass. She's not Vanessa." Jude's grip tightened on the glass. Vanessa, his ex, had played him for a fool, cozying up to him for his wealth before running off when the scandal hit. He wouldn't let another woman pull that shit again. Amara might have a killer smile and a quick wit, but he wasn't falling for it. This marriage was a contract, nothing more. The wedding day arrived like a storm cloud over Central Park. The venue, a historic mansion dripped with roses and chandeliers, every detail screaming money. Amara stood in front of a mirror, her white gown shimmering against her skin. She looked like a goddess, but her stomach churned. Lila adjusted her veil, muttering, "This is some bougie bullshit. Sis, you sure about this?" Amara forced a smile. "It's for Mom. I'll survive." "Survive, girl. You are a queen. Make that Ice King bow," Lila said, winking, in the groom's suite. Jude tugged at his tuxedo collar, feeling like a caged animal. His best man, a colleague named Greg, clapped his shoulder. "Lighten up. Man, she's hot. Could be worse." "She's a means to an end," Jude said flatly. "Let's get this over with." The ceremony was a blur of vows and applause, but the air between Jude and Amara was ice cold. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Jude barely brushed her lips, his eyes avoiding hers. Amara's heart sank, but she kept her chin up. whispering so only he could hear. "This is bullshit, Carver. But I'm not backing down." Jude's lips twitched, a flicker of respect in his gaze, but he said nothing. The crowd cheered, oblivious to the tension. Lila, in a bright yellow bridesmaid dress, leaned over to Amara during the reception. "Blink twice if you want me to trip him into the cake," she said. Amara snorted, sipping champagne. Tempting, but I'll handle him. The reception dragged on with toasts and dancing under twinkling lights. Amara moved through it like a pro, charming guests with her laugh, but inside, she felt like screaming. Jude stood across the room, talking to investors, not once glancing her way. She was his wife now, but she'd never felt more alone. As the night wound down, Amara slipped outside to the garden, the cool air soothing her. She kicked off her heels, letting her toes sink into the grass, and closed her eyes. The sound of footsteps made her turn. Jude stood there, his tie loosened, a glass of bourbon in hand. "Running already," he said, his voice low. "Not my style," she shot back. "Just needed a break from the bullshit." He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "This marriage, it's a deal. Amara, don't expect me to be something I'm not." She laughed, bitter. "Oh, I don't—" "You've made that crystal clear." Ice King. His jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. For a moment, they stood in silence, the city's hum in the distance. Amara's heart raced, part anger, part something she refused to name. Jude turned and walked away, leaving her under the stars. Her resolve hardening. Wasn't here for love. She was here for her mom, for herself, and if Jude thought he could break her, he was in for a hell of a surprise. Back in the present, Jude knelt on the conference room floor, picking up the deed to Amara's brownstone. The reporters had scattered, chasing the next headline, but their questions echoed in his head. Did she really save the company? Why would she do that? His hands shook. He'd called her a thief, a liar. But the truth was staring him in the face. Amara had given up everything, her home, her pride, to save his legacy, and he'd pushed her away. He stood the weight of his mistakes crushing him. Outside the rain poured, and somewhere in the city, Amara was gone. Jude's chest ached. He'd fucked up, big time. But this wasn't the end. He'd find her, even if it meant tearing New York apart. Hey, what a start, right? Amara just dropped a bombshell, and Jude's world is crumbling. Will he realize what he has lost? Can Amara forgive him? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Tell me who you are rooting for, Amara or Jude. Trust me, this drama's just getting started. The rain hadn't stopped since Amara stormed out of that damn conference room, and New York City felt like it was drowning Jude. Carver sat in his penthouse office. The Manhattan skyline, a gray blur beyond the windows. Papers littered his desk. Amara's documents, each one a punch to his gut. Bank transfers, investor emails, a deed to her Harlem brownstone, sold for a fraction of its worth. She'd funneled every cent into saving Carver Group, and he'd called her a thief. What the hell have I done? His phone buzzed a text from his mother. Eleanor, fix this Jude. She is your wife. He snorted, tossing the phone aside. Wife Amara was a stranger he'd married to shut up the press and his mom. But those papers told a different story. She wasn't after his money. She was saving his ass, and he'd screwed her over. Cross town, Amara sat in a Brooklyn cafe, the smell of roasted coffee and fresh bagels filling the air. The place was cozy with mismatched chairs and jazz humming from a vintage speaker. She sipped an iced latte, her laptop open to a spreadsheet of Carver Group's finances. Her curls were tucked into a messy bun, and her oversized sweater hid the tension in her shoulders. She'd been up all night, piecing together how Marcus, Jude's ex-partner, was tanking the company. The bastard was spreading lies to investors, pulling strings to make sure Carver Group went under. Amara wasn't about to let that happen, not because she cared about Jude, but because she'd be damned if she let her sacrifice go to waste. The cafe door jingled, and Trey Washington strode in, all 6 feet of him, in a tailored blazer and a grin that could charm a snake. Amara's best friend and a badass lawyer. Trey had been her rock since college. "Yo, you look like you haven't slept since Obama was president," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Gee, thanks." "Trey," Amara said, rolling her eyes. "You here to help or just roast me?" "Both," he said, stealing a sip of her latte. "What is the deal? You're still playing superhero for that asshole husband of yours." Amara sighed, rubbing her temples. "It's not for him. It's for me. I didn't sell my damn house just to watch it all crash." Trey's face softened. "You sure that's all it is, 'cause I see the way you look at him?" "Mara," she scoffed, but her cheeks warmed. "You are trippin'. Jude's a walking red flag. I'm just cleaning up his mess." Trey leaned back unconvinced, but he dropped it. They spent the next hour mapping out a plan, calls to investors, a pitch to restructure Carver Group's debt, anything to keep the company afloat. Amara's mind was sharp, cutting through numbers like a blade, but her heart was heavy. She missed her Harlem brownstone, the creaky stairs, the kitchen where her dad used to make cornbread. Selling it had felt like losing him all over again. Outside, Jude stood under an awning, his coat soaked from the rain. He'd tracked Amara here, though he wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the guilt eating him alive. Through the cafe window, he saw her laughing with Trey, her smile bright despite the exhaustion in her eyes. Trey reached across the table, touching her hand, and Jude's stomach twisted. What the hell is she doing with him? He turned away, jaw tight, and disappeared into the storm. That night, the Carver Group hosted a gala at a swanky midtown hotel, all glitz and champagne to woo investors. Amara stood by a floor-to-ceiling window, the city lights sparkling below. Her red dress clung to her curves, and she'd let her curls fall loose, framing her face like a crown. She was playing the perfect wife, smiling at old money types who whispered about her behind their wine. "Glasses. She's exotic," one said. A bold choice for Jude. Amara gritted her teeth, her polite nod hiding the urge to flip them off. Jude watched her from across the room, his bourbon untouched. She moved like she owned the place, charming investors with a laugh that hit him like a shot of whiskey. He hated how she got under his skin, how her presence made his penthouse feel less empty. But then a familiar voice purred behind him. Jude Carver, still breaking hearts. Vanessa Kane, his ex, slid into view, her blonde hair cascading over a black dress that screamed money at 38. She was still a knockout, but her smile was all predator. "You look like you need a real woman. Not that arrangement you're stuck with." Jude's eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" Vanessa, she leaned closer, her perfume sharp. "You. We were good together." Jude. "Dump the contract wife and let's pick up where we left off." He glanced at Amara, who was now talking to an investor, her hand gesturing animatedly. "Amara, not you," he said, his voice low. "That's the only thing I'm sure of." Vanessa smirked, undeterred. Give it time. She'll show her true colors. Amara caught the exchange from the corner of her eye, her stomach knotting. Jude and Vanessa looked too cozy, his hand brushing her arm. She turned away, forcing a smile for the investor, but her chest ached. Why do I even care? She hated that Jude's coldness hurt, hated that she noticed the way his eyes softened when he thought no one was looking. Later, the gala wound down, and Jude and Amara ended up in the hotel's kitchen, grabbing a late-night snack after the guests left. The staff had cleared out, leaving them alone with stainless steel counters and the faint hum of a fridge. Amara rummaged through a tray of leftovers, pulling out a slider. If I have to smile at one more rich asshole, I'm gonna lose it, she muttered, taking a bite. Jude leaned against the counter, his tie undone, a rare hint of amusement in his eyes. You handled them like a pro. Almost had me fooled. Fooled? She raised an eyebrow, licking ketchup off her thumb. I'm not the one cozying up with my ex in front of everyone. His face hardened. Vanessa is nothing. You, on the other hand, were pretty damn close with that lawyer today. Amara laughed, sharp and bitter. Trey, he's my friend, Jude. Not that you'd know what that is. Mr. Ice King. He stepped closer, his voice low. Don't he play games with me, Amara? I see how he looks at you. Her pulse quickened, the air between them crackling. And I see how Vanessa looks at you. So what is your point? Jude's hand brushed hers, sending a jolt through her. He didn't pull away, his green eyes locking onto hers, intense and unreadable. The kitchen felt too small, the space between them shrinking. His fingers grazed her wrist, and for a moment, she thought he'd kiss her. Her breath hitched, her body leaning in despite herself. Then she snapped out of it, stepping back. Get your damn act together before you try that. Carver, she said, her voice shaky but firm. She grabbed another slider and walked out, leaving him standing there, his heart pounding harder than he'd admit. The next day, Amara met Lila at their favorite diner in Harlem, a hole in the wall with sticky booths and the best mac and cheese in the city. Lila, in a tie-dye shirt and hoop earrings, was halfway through a plate of waffles when Amara slid into the booth. All right, spill, Lila said, pointing a fork at her. You look like you got beef with the world, Amara sighed, stirring her coffee. Jude is a prick. Thinks I am after his money. Gets jealous when I talk to Trey, then flirts with his ex right in front of me. I'm done. Lila snorted. Done, girl. You're just getting started. That man has got you twisted, and you know it. Twisted, Amara scoffed. I don't even like him. Uh-huh, Lila said, smirking. That's why you were blushing like you just ran a marathon. Look, Jude is a dumbass. But he's not blind. He sees you re a queen. Give him time to catch up. Amara shook her head, but Lila's words stuck. She didn't want to care about Jude, but the way he'd looked at her in the kitchen, vulnerable, almost human, kept replaying in her mind. She pushed it aside, focusing on the real issue, Carver Group. Marcus was still out there, screwing with investors, and she wasn't about to let him win. That night, Amara sat in her Harlem brownstone, the last time she'd ever call it home. The living room was packed with boxes, the walls bare except for a photo of her dad smiling in his Sunday best. She traced his face, her throat tight. Selling this place was like cutting out a piece of her heart. But it was the only way to raise the cash needed to save Carver Group. She'd wired the money to an investor that morning, sealing the deal. Lila crashed on the couch, a pizza box between them. You sure about this, sis? She asked. Her usual sass softened. This place is us, Amara nodded, her eyes stinging. I'm not doing it for Jude. I'm doing it for me. If I'm stuck in this marriage, it's gonna mean something. Lila pulled her into a hug. You're a damn superhero. You know that. But if Jude doesn't see it, I am roasting his ass on my next comedy special. Amara laughed, wiping her eyes. Deal. But as she sat there, the weight of her decision settled in. She'd given up her home, her memories for a man who didn't trust her. And yet, a small part of her, a part she hated, hoped he'd see her, really see her, before it was too late. Across the city, Jude stood on his penthouse balcony, the rain finally slowing to a drizzle. He held Amara's deed in his hand. The paper creased from his grip. Vanessa's words echoed in his head. She'll show her true colors, But the only colors he saw were Amara as fierce, brilliant, and so damn stubborn. He'd pushed her away. But those papers, that deed, told a truth he couldn't ignore. She was saving him, and he was letting her slip through his fingers. His phone buzzed another investor meeting tomorrow. Marcus would be there, probably spinning more lies. Jude's jaw tightened. He didn't know how to fix things with Amara. But he'd be damned if he let Marcus destroy what she'd fought for. The game was changing, and Jude was finally ready to play. The Carver Group's boardroom smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Glass walls framed a view of Manhattan's skyline, but the tension inside made the air feel thick. Jude Carver sat at the head of the table, his suit crisp but his eyes tired. Investors murmured, their faces tight with worry. Marcus Reed, Jude's ex-partner, stood at the front, his smug grin like a snake's. He'd been spreading lies for weeks, convincing everyone that Carver Group was a sinking ship, and now he was pointing the finger at Amara. Ms. Brooks has been less than transparent, Marcus said, his voice smooth as oil. He clicked through a PowerPoint, flashing doctored financials that made Amara look like she'd siphoned millions. I hate to say it, but Jude's new wife might be more trouble than she's worth. Jude's jaw clenched his fingers, drumming the table. He'd seen Amara's documents, the proof she'd saved the company. But Marcus' lies were slick, and the investors were eating it up. He glanced at the empty chair where Amara should have been. She'd been dodging his calls since their moment in the kitchen, and he couldn't blame her. He'd been a damn idiot, letting jealousy and Vanessa's whispers cloud his judgment. Across town, Amara Brooks sat on the stoop of her sold Harlem brownstone, the for sale sign, a knife in her chest. The morning air was crisp, carrying the smell of bagels from the deli down the street. Her curls were stuffed under a Knicks cap, and her oversized hoodie hid the weight she'd lost from stress. She'd spent the night packing the last of her things, each box, reminder of what she'd given up. Her dad's old jazz records, the quilt her mom made gone, just like the home they'd built. Her phone buzzed with a text from Trey board meeting. As a shit show. Marcus is trashing you. You okay? Amara. Stomach twisted. It poured everything into saving Carver Group, and now Marcus was painting her as a thief. Worse, Jude hadn't called to warn her. He's probably eating Marcus's bullshit with a spoon, she thought, her eyes stinging. Lila's beat-up Honda pulled up, and her sister hopped out, braids swinging, a coffee cup in each hand. Yo, you look like you got hit by a bus, Lila said, handing Amara a latte. What's the deal? Amara took the cup, her voice flat. Marcus is telling everyone I'm stealing from Jude's company, and Jude's just letting it happen. Lila's eyes widened. That slimy bastard and your Ice King is cool with it, girl. You need to march in there and shut that shit down. I am tired. Lila, Amara said, her voice breaking. I sold my home. I worked my ass off. And Jude still thinks I am the enemy. What's the point? Lila sat beside her, slinging an arm around her shoulders. The point is, you Amara fucking Brooks. You don't quit. But if Jude can see that, he's dumber than a bag of hammers. Amara managed a weak laugh, but her heart wasn't in it. She'd felt something in that kitchen with Jude, a spark, a chance, but now it was gone. Buried under his silence and Marcus' lies. Back at the boardroom, the meeting ended in chaos. Investors stormed out muttering about lawsuits, and Marcus slipped away with a smirk. Jude stayed behind, staring at the fake financials on the screen. His phone buzzed. Vanessa again. Told you. She's trouble. Call me. He deleted the text, his gut churning. Vanessa had been whispering poison for weeks, feeding his doubts about Amara. But those documents from the conference room, the deed to her brownstone, they didn't lie. Amara did. He found her that evening at the penthouse, packing a suitcase in the guest room she'd claimed as her own. The space was bare, except for a few books and a photo of her dad. Amara's face was set, her movements sharp as she folded clothes. Jude leaned against the doorframe, his tie loose, bourbon on his breath. "Going somewhere," he said, his voice low. Amara didn't look up. "Anywhere but here." He stepped closer, anger flaring. "Marcus showed the board some ugly numbers today. Said you've been skimming money. You want to tell me what's going on?" Her hands froze, and she laughed, a sound sharp enough to cut glass. "You are unbelievable, Jude. You think I am stealing after I sold my damn house to save your company?" He flinched, but his pride kept him rigid. "Then why didn't you tell me? Why sneak around with that lawyer, meeting investors behind my back? Trey, my friend, you jealous asshole," she snapped, finally facing him. Her eyes blazed, her chest heaving. "I was cleaning up your mess while you flirted with Vanessa and let Marcus shit all over me. You don't trust me, Jude. You never did." His jaw tightened, her words hitting harder than he'd admit. "I don't know what to trust anymore," Vanessa said. Vanessa Amara's voice rose, incredulous. "You're listening to your snake of an ex over me. Screw you, Jude. You're not a fool. You're a coward who can see the truth." She zipped her suitcase, the sound final. Jude's heart pounded, a voice in his head screaming to stop her, but his feet stayed glued to the floor. "You're my wife," he said, the words sounding hollow even to him. Wife Amara laughed bitterly, slinging the bag over her shoulder. "I am a contract, Jude, and I am done with this bullshit marriage." She brushed past him, her scent coconut and jasmine lingering like a ghost. The front door slammed, and the penthouse fell silent, colder than ever. Amara crashed at Lila's cramped Brooklyn apartment, a third-floor walk-up with peeling paint and a couch that smelled like pizza. Lila was at a comedy gig, so Amara sat alone, staring at the ceiling. Her phone lit up with notifications, news articles about the board meeting, calling her Jude Carver's controversial wife. She turned it off, her chest tight. She'd given everything, her home, her pride, for a man who saw her as a liar. Why does it hurt so much? Lila burst in at midnight, still buzzing from her set. "All right, sis, time for emergency karaoke," she said, tossing Amara a jacket. "You're not sitting here feeling sorry for yourself." Amara groaned, but let Lila drag her to a dive bar in Williamsburg. All neon lights and sticky floors. The place was packed, the air thick with beer and bad singing. Lila shoved a mic in Amara's hand, grinning. "Your turn. Sing something angry." Amara, a few shots deep, picked Single Ladies by Beyoncé, half laughing as she belted it out. The crowd cheered, and for a moment, she felt free, like the old Amara who didn't carry the weight of a loveless marriage. But when the song ended, she stumbled to the bar, her buzz fading. Lila followed, frowning. "You okay?" Sis Lila asked, softer now. Amara shook her head, her voice slurring. "I thought I could handle it. Lila, the marriage, Jude, all of it. But I am done." Lila hugged her tight. "You are not done. You were just getting started. But if Jude doesn't pull his head out of his ass, I'm roasting him on national TV." Amara laughed, but it turned into a sob. She grabbed her phone, drunk, dialing Jude's voicemail. "You're an asshole." "Carver," she said, her voice thick. "I gave you everything, and you broke me." She hung up, tears streaming, and Lila held her as the bar's noise faded into the background. Jude sat in his penthouse, the voicemail playing on repeat. Amara's voice, raw and broken, cut deeper than any knife. "You broke me." He poured another bourbon, his hands shaking. The penthouse felt like a tomb, every corner reminding him of her. Her laugh at breakfast, her books on the coffee table. He'd fucked up, letting Marcus and Vanessa twist his head. But the truth was clear now. Amara wasn't a gold digger. She was a goddamn miracle, and he'd pushed her away. He pulled out the deed to her brownstone, the paper worn from his touch. She'd sold her home, her memories to save his company, and he'd repaid her with suspicion. His phone buzzed. Eleanor. Again. "Come to dinner tomorrow. We need to talk." He ignored it. Dinner could wait. He needed to find Amara, to fix this. But where the hell did he start? The next morning, Jude stood outside Lila's apartment, the Brooklyn street, buzzing with delivery bikes and honking cabs. He'd never been here, never cared enough to visit. The buzzer was broken, so he waited, his coat damp from the drizzle. When Lila appeared, hauling a trash bag, she froze, her eyes narrowing. "What the hell do you want?" "Ice King," she said, tossing the bag into a bin. "I need to see Amara," Jude said, his voice rough. Lila crossed her arms, her braids glinting in the light. "You need to get your shit together. That is what you need. She's gone. Jude, you broke her, and I ain't letting you near her till you prove you're not a complete dumbass." Jude's chest tightened. "I know I fucked up. Just tell me where she is." Lila studied him, her gaze sharp. "She's with me, but she is not ready for your drama. You want to fix this? Start by shutting Marcus down. He's the one screwing you both." She turned and walked away, leaving Jude in the rain, his resolve hardening. Marcus was going down, and he'd do whatever it took to get Amara back. The Brooklyn morning was gray, the kind of damp chill that sank into your bones. Jude Carver stood outside Lila's apartment, his breath visible in the air, his coat still damp from yesterday's drizzle. He'd been here twice now, hoping to catch Amara. But Lila had made it clear he wasn't welcome until he proved he wasn't a dumbass. Her words, not his. Jude's jaw tightened as he paced the sidewalk, the city waking up around him, delivery bikes whizzing by, a bodega cat eyeing him from a stoop, clutched Amara's brownstone deed in his pocket. The paper creased from days of handling. She'd sold her home to save his company, and he'd repaid her with suspicion. What the hell is wrong with me? Inside, Amara Brooks sat on Lila's lumpy couch, a mug of coffee gone cold in her hands. Her curls were stuffed into a messy bun, and her eyes were puffy from lack of sleep. Lila's apartment was a chaotic mix of comedy posters, thrift store furniture, and pizza boxes, but it felt more like home than Jude's sterile penthouse ever had. Amara's phone buzzed with another news alert. "Carver Group in turmoil. Is Amara Brooks to blame?" She tossed it aside, her stomach churning. Marcus's lies were spreading like wildfire, and Jude's silence was deafening. Lila burst through the door, carrying a bag of donuts. "Morning, superstar," she said, tossing the bag onto the coffee table. "You look like you need sugar and a hug." "Stat." Amara managed a weak smile. "I need a new life. Lila, this one's a damn mess." Lila plopped beside her, kicking off her sneakers. "Mess, girl. You're out here saving empires while your husband is playing freeze tag with his feelings. You are a legend, some legend." Amara muttered. "I sold Dad's house, and for what Jude still thinks I'm a crook." Lila's face softened. "You did it 'cause you. Mara, you don't let shit fall apart, even when it's not your job to fix it. But Jude, he's gotta step up, or I'm roasting his ass at my next gig." Amara laughed, the sound brittle. She wanted to believe Lila, but the voicemail she'd left Jude drunk and raw kept replaying in her head. "You broke me." She'd meant it, and that scared her. She wasn't supposed to care about Jude, but his silence, his coldness, had carved a hole in her chest. Meanwhile, Jude was back at Carver Group's headquarters, a glass and steel fortress in Midtown. The boardroom was quiet now, the chaos of Marcus's accusations, replaced by an uneasy calm. Jude sat alone, flipping through Amara's documents, her emails to investors, her restructuring plan, the deed. Each page was a testament to her brilliance, her sacrifice. He'd been blind, letting Marcus and Vanessa twist his head. Vanessa, latest text. She's playing you. Jude. Let's talk sat unanswered. He deleted it, his gut twisting. Vanessa was a mistake he wouldn't repeat. His assistant buzzed the intercom. Mr. Carver, you've got a visitor. Mr. Patel, one of the investors. Jude straightened. Send him in. Mr. Patel, a wiry man with sharp eyes, entered, clutching a tablet. Jude. We need to talk about Amara, he said, cutting to the chase. Marcus's numbers are bullshit. Your wife's the one who pulled us back from the brink. Her plan, restructuring the debt, securing new capital, it's why we are still in the game. Jude's throat tightened. Why didn't she tell me? Patel raised an eyebrow. Would you have listened? She's been working behind the scenes, meeting with us, convincing us to stay. Hell. She sold her own property to cover a shortfall. That's not a gold digger. That's a goddamn hero. Jude's chest ached. Patel's words echoing Lila's. She's a queen. He nodded, his voice rough. Thanks. Patel. I'll handle Marcus. Patel left, and Jude leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Amara wasn't just saving his company, she was saving him. And he'd pushed her away. He needed to see her, to make this right. But first, he had to face the mess he'd made. That evening, Jude drove to Harlem, the brownstone sold sign glaring under the streetlights. He'd come to return a book Amara had left at the penthouse, a worn copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God. It was an excuse, really, to see her, to say something, anything. The new owners hadn't moved in yet, and the place looked haunted, its windows dark. Jude climbed the stoop, his heart pounding, and rang the bell. No answer. He was about to leave when the door creaked open. Amara stood there, a cardboard box in her arms, her face etched with exhaustion. Her hoodie was dusted with packing tape, and her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. What the hell are you doing here? Jude, she said, her voice flat. He held up the book, feeling like an idiot. You left this. I thought you'd want it. She set the box down, crossing her arms. You drove across town to return a book. Bullshit. What do you want? He stepped closer, the stoop's narrow steps forcing them close. I talked to Patel. He told me about your plan, the investors, the house. Why didn't you tell me? Amara, her laugh was bitter. Tell you? So you could accuse me of stealing again, or maybe let Vanessa whisper more lies in your ear. I'm done explaining myself. Jude, he flinched, her words cutting deep. I was wrong, he said, his voice low. I fucked up. Okay, I didn't see you. Not really, but I'm trying to now. She studied him, her eyes searching for a lie. Trying's not enough. You broke something. Jude. You can just show up with a book and fix it. He nodded, his throat tight. I know, but I'm not giving up. Amara's gaze softened, just for a moment, before she turned away. Take your book and go. I've got enough to deal with. She shut the door, leaving him in the dark, the book heavy in his hands. Inside, Amara leaned against the door, her heart racing. She'd wanted to believe him, to let his words fill the hole he'd left. But she couldn't. Not yet. She slid to the floor, hugging her knees, and let the tears come. The brownstone was gone, and so was the woman who thought she could handle Jude Carver. The next night, Lila dragged Jude to her comedy club in Brooklyn, a gritty spot with exposed brick and a stage lit by a single spotlight. She'd texted him an ultimatum. Show up or I tell Amara you are a lost cause. Jude sat in the back nursing a beer, his nerves on edge. The crowd was rowdy, laughing at Lila's warm-up act. But Jude barely heard it. His mind was on Amara, on the way she'd looked at him on that stoop hurt, but still fierce. Lila took the stage, her braids swinging, her grin wicked. All right, y'all, let's talk about my sister's husband, Jude Carver. The crowd hooted, and Jude sank lower in his seat. This man married a queen but treats her like a pawn. Bro, get your head out of your ass. Amara's out here saving empires, and you are what's sulking in your penthouse. Get a clue. The crowd roared and Jude's face burned. Lila's words were brutal, but they hit home. He wasn't just failing Amara, he was failing himself. He slipped out before the set ended, the laughter echoing in his ears. Lila was right. He needed to do more than apologize. He needed to act. Back at Lila's apartment, Amara sat at the kitchen table, her laptop open to Carver Group's financials. Trey was there helping her draft a final pitch to investors. He leaned over her shoulder, pointing at a spreadsheet. "You are a genius, Mara," he said, his voice warm. "This could turn everything around." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks, Trey. I just wish it felt like it mattered." He touched her arm, his gaze soft. "It matters. And I know you are doing this for him. You love him, don't you?" Amara's breath caught Trey's words slicing through her defenses. I can she stammered, but her eyes betrayed her. She cared about Jude, more than she wanted to admit. The way he'd looked at her on the stoop, raw and honest, had shaken something loose. But love, that was a risk she wasn't ready for. Trey nodded, stepping back. "Just be honest with yourself, Mara, you deserve that." She closed her laptop, her head spinning. Trey was right. But so was Lila. She was a queen, and queens didn't beg for love. If Jude wanted her, he'd have to prove it. Jude drove back to his penthouse, the city lights blurring past. He parked in the garage, but instead of going upstairs, he sat in his car, the brownstone deed on the passenger seat. Patel, S words, Lila S, roast, Amara S tears. They all swirled in his head, building to a truth he couldn't ignore. He loved her. Not the contract, not the image, but Amara, her fire, her heart, her stubborn refusal to break. The realization hit like a freight train, leaving him breathless. But love wasn't enough. He'd hurt her, doubted her, and now she was gone. His phone buzzed a text from Vanessa. Heard about the board meeting. Let's grab a drink. He deleted it, his resolve hardening. Vanessa was the past. Amara was his future. If he could convince her to give him a chance. He started the car heading for Carver Group. Marcus was meeting investors tomorrow, and Jude was done playing defense. It was time to fight for his company, for Amara, for the man he wanted to be. But as he drove, a nagging fear lingered. What if he was too late? The Carver Group's Manhattan headquarters was a war zone. Reporters swarmed the lobby, their cameras flashing like strobe lights, shouting questions about the latest scandal. Inside the boardroom, Marcus Reed stood like a king, his tailored suit and slick grin hiding the venom underneath. He'd dropped a bomb fake financial documents claiming Amara Brooks had siphoned millions from the company. The investors were in a frenzy, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of panic. Jude Carver sat at the head of the table, his knuckles white, his green eyes fixed on the screen where Marcus S. lies glowed in high definition. "This is irrefutable proof," Marcus said, his voice dripping with false regret. "Amara Brooks has been playing us all, especially Jude. I'm sorry, man." But your wife's a fraud. Jude, E.S. chest burned. Memories of Amara, S. documents, her emails, her brownstone deed, clashing with Marcus, S. accusations. He'd talked to Patel, heard the truth about her sacrifice, but Marcus, S. evidence was slick, designed to destroy. The investors turned to Jude, waiting for him to speak, to defend his wife. But doubt, that old bastard, crept in. What if he'd misread her? What if Vanessa was right, and Amara was playing a long game? Across town, Amara sat in Lila's Brooklyn apartment, her laptop open to a live stream of the board meeting. The grainy feed showed Marcus's smug face, then Jude, his silence. Her heart sank each second he didn't speak. A knife in her chest. She'd sold her home, worked herself to the bone, and still, he didn't trust her. Lila sprawled on the couch with a bag of chips, glanced at the screen and cursed. That slimy asshole Marcus is full of shit. And Jude's just sitting there, girl. You deserve better than this. Amara's voice was barely a whisper. I thought he saw me. Lila, on the stoop. He said he was trying, but I was wrong. Lila sat up, her braids swinging. Wrong, no. He's wrong. You're a damn queen, and he's too busy tripping over his ego to notice. Fuck him. Amara's eyes stung, but she nodded. Lila was right. She'd given Jude everything, her home, her heart, and he'd let Marcus tear her apart. She closed her laptop, her resolve hardening. She was done. That afternoon, Amara returned to the penthouse to grab the last of her things. The place was as cold as ever, all marble and glass, like a museum nobody visited. She moved through the guest room, packing her books and a framed photo of her dad. Her hands shook, the weight of the past weeks crashing down. She'd fought for Jude's company, for his legacy, because she'd seen something in him, a man worth saving. But he hadn't seen her. Not really. Jude walked in. His suit rumpled, bourbon on his breath. He froze at the sight of her suitcase. What the hell? Amara. You are leaving again. She didn't look at him, her voice steady. I'm not leaving. I'm gone. He stepped closer, his voice rough. Marcus showed the board some numbers, said you have been stealing. I didn't say anything because I'm trying to figure this out. Her laugh was sharp, cutting through the silence. Figure it out. You sat there and let him call me a thief. Again. You didn't to say a damn word, Jude. You don't get it. Jude, she'd said, her voice raw. This isn't just a house. It's my dad, my home, and I gave it up for you. He'd stepped closer, drawn to her fire. Why? Why do all this if you hate me? She'd looked up, her eyes locking onto his. I don't hate you. That's the problem. The words hung between them, heavy and electric. Jude moved without thinking, his hand cupping her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. She didn't pull away, her breath hitching. He kissed her slow at first, then hungry, her lips soft and warm against his. Her hands slid up his chest, pulling him closer, and they stumbled to the couch, bodies pressed tight. His fingers traced her waist, slipping under her hoodie, her skin hot under his touch. She arched into him, a soft moan escaping her lips, and for a moment, the world disappeared. But then she froze, her hands pushing against his chest. Stop, she whispered, her voice trembling. I can't love someone who doesn't trust me. Jude pulled back, his heart pounding, her words a knife. Amara, No, she said, standing, her eyes wet. You don't get to do this, not until you mean it. She'd walked away, leaving him on the couch, the taste of her still on his lips. That night haunted him now, a reminder of what he'd thrown away. Amara boarded a train to Chicago, her suitcase at her feet, the city blurring past the window. Rain streaked the glass, mirroring the tears she refused to let fall. She'd called her mom, needing a place to heal, to forget Jude and the mess she'd left behind. Her phone buzzed. Trey. Checking in. You okay, Mara? You don't have to run. She didn't reply. Running was all she had left. Back in Brooklyn, Leela called Jude, her voice a mix of fury and pity. You fucking idiot, she said. No preamble. You let my sister walk away. She was on a train to Chicago, and it's your fault. Fix this, or I'll make your life a comedy special from hell. Jude's heart stopped. Chicago when? Figure it out. Ice King, Lila snapped. Hanging up, he sat in his office, the brownstone deed on his desk, Amara's voicemail playing on a loop. You broke me. He'd a done. More than break her, he'd lost her. But then his phone pinged an email from Patel, forwarded from an investor. It was a screenshot of Marcus's real financials, proof he'd faked the documents. Amara was innocent, and Marcus was the snake. Jude's blood boiled, a clarity cutting through the fog Marcus had played him, and he'd let Amara pay the price. He grabbed his coat, the deed, and headed for the door. He didn't know how to find her, but he'd tear the world apart if he had to. Amara was his wife, his heart, and he wasn't letting her go without a fight. Meanwhile, Vanessa slipped into a midtown bar, her red lipstick sharp as her smile. She'd heard about Amara's exit and saw her chance. She texted Jude. She's gone. Babe, let's start over. The reply came fast. Get the hell out of my life. Vanessa's smile faded, but she wasn't done. If Jude wouldn't come back, she'd make sure his world burned. Amara's train rumbled through the night, her reflection pale in the window. She pulled her dad's photo from her bag, tracing his smile. I tried. Daddy, she whispered. I really tried. But as the miles stretched between her and New York, a small voice wondered if Jude would ever fight for her. She pushed it down, closing her eyes. She was done hoping. The Carver Group's press room was a circus brighter and louder than Times Square. At midnight, camera flashes popped like fireworks. Reporters shouted questions, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Jude Carver stood at the podium, his suit sharp, but his face raw like a man who'd been to hell and back. The live feed was broadcasting to millions, every network from CNN to TMZ eating up the drama. He gripped the podium, his knuckles white, and leaned into the mic. I am here to set the record straight, Jude said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. Marcus Reed lied to you. He faked documents, sabotaged my company, and framed my wife, Amara Brooks. She didn't steal a dime. She sold her home, her father's legacy, to save Carver Group, and I was the asshole who let her take the fall. The room gasped, cameras zooming in. Jude's eyes glistened, but he pushed on. I was blind, a fucking idiot who didn't see the truth. Amara's not just my wife. She's the heart of this company, the heart of me. I don't deserve her, but I'm begging her to come back. Amara, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I love you. The feed cut to static as reporters erupted, but the damage was done. Jude's words were trending worldwide. Hashtags like Amara Brooks and Jude Carver, apology, lighting up social media. In Chicago, Amara sat in her mom's living room, the TV glowing in the dark. Her mom, a petite woman with graying curls, squeezed her hand. Amara's eyes were wet, her heart pounding. Jude's voice raw, broken, echoed in her head. I love you. She'd wanted to hear those words, but now they felt like a storm she wasn't ready for. 24 hours earlier, Jude had spent the night at Carver Group, piecing together Marcus's betrayal with Patel. Helped the real financials buried in encrypted files, showed Marcus's embezzlement millions. Funneled to offshore accounts, Jude had called a lawyer. then the press setting up the live conference. But his mind wasn't on Marcus. It was on Amara, on the train carrying her away, on the voicemail that still haunted him. "You broke me." He'd booked a red-eye to Chicago landing at O'Hare as dawn broke. The city was cold, the sky a bruised gray, and Jude felt like a stranger in his own skin. He rented a car and drove to Amara's Mama's house, a modest bungalow in Hyde Park with a sagging porch and a garden full of roses. He parked across the street, clutching the brownstone deed, his heart in his throat. Lila's words rang in his ears. "Fix this, or I'll make your life a comedy special from hell." The door opened and Amara stepped out, her curls tucked under a scarf, her coat buttoned against the wind. She was carrying a trash bag, her movements slow, like the weight of the world was on her shoulders. Jude got out of the car, the rain starting to fall, and called her name. She froze, her eyes narrowing. "Jude, what the hell are you doing here?" He crossed the street, rain soaking his coat. "I fucked up. Amara, I should be trusted you, fought for you. I'm so damn sorry." She dropped the bag, her voice sharp. "Sorry you let Marcus call me a thief. You let the world think I was nothing. You don't get to show up and fix this with an apology." He stepped closer, his eyes pleading. "I know. I was blind. But I see you now. You're everything brilliant, fierce. The best thing that ever happened to me. I love you." Amara, her breath hitched, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "You don't get to say that. Not after everything." "I mean it," he said, his voice breaking. He pulled the deed from his pocket, holding it out. "This is yours. I bought it back. It's not enough, but it's a start." She stared at the paper, her hands trembling. "You bought my house?" "I'd buy the whole damn city if it made you stay," he said, stepping closer. "But I don't want a contract. I want you, Amara. For real." The rain poured, soaking them both, but neither moved. Amara's heart raced her walls, crumbling under his gaze. She wanted to hate him, to walk away, but his eyes, raw, desperate, held her. She stepped forward, closing the gap, and kissed him. It was fierce, hungry, their lips crashing together like a storm breaking. His hands cupped her face, her fingers gripping his coat, the rain washing away the pain. They pulled back, breathless, foreheads touching. "You're an asshole," she whispered, her voice shaky. "But I love you too." He laughed, a sound raw and real, and kissed her again, the world fading to nothing but them. 1 month later, the Brooks Tower construction site was a hive of activity cranes swinging against the New York skyline. The project named for Amara was Carver, Group's comeback, a symbol of their fight. Jude stood on the muddy ground, his hard hat crooked, his eyes fixed on Amara. She was in a tailored blazer, her curls loose, talking to engineers with that fire he loved. The press was there, snapping photos, but Jude didn't care. This was her moment. He'd spent the past month proving himself, shutting down Marcus with a lawsuit, moving Amara back into her brownstone and working side by side with her at Carver Group. She'd taken the role of co-CEO, her ideas driving the company forward. They'd fought, laughed, and fallen deeper, rebuilding trust one day at a time. Tonight, though, was different. Jude had a plan. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the site in gold, he called everyone over. Amara raised an eyebrow, sensing something. He took her hand, leading her to a cleared spot, the city glittering behind them. "Amara Brooks," he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. "I was a damn fool once thinking a contract could hold you. You saved my company, my heart, and I'm done playing it safe." He dropped to one knee, pulling a ring from his pocket, a simple band with a diamond that caught the light. Screw the contract. Marry me because I'm crazy about you, because I want forever with you. Amara's eyes widened, tears brimming. The crowd held its breath, cameras clicking. She laughed, wiping her face. You're lucky I'm a fool for you. Carver. Yes. The crowd cheered, and Jude slid the ring onto her finger, pulling her into a kiss that felt like coming home. Her lips were soft, her arms tight around him, and for the first time, Jude felt whole. The wedding was a Brooklyn affair held at a rooftop venue with fairy lights and a view of the skyline. Jazz floated through the air, and the smell of soul food. Mac and cheese collards, cornbread mixed with the summer breeze. Amara glowed in a cream gown, her curls crowned with flowers, while Jude looked like a man reborn in a tailored tux. Lila, in a hot pink dress, grabbed the mic during the reception, her grin wicked. Ye all, I'm the maid of honor. So I gotta roast the groom one last time, she said, the crowd laughing. Jude Carver went from Ice King to Love King, and I am shook, but seriously, you hurt my sister again, and I'll make your life a comedy special from hell. To Amara and Jude, the crowd toasted, and Amara leaned into Jude, whispering, You owe me a new house, asshole. But I love you. He grinned, kissing her temple. Deal, as the night wound down. Amara and Jude slipped away to the edge of the roof, the city sparkling below. She rested her head on his shoulder, her ring catching the light. We did it, she said softly. We saved the company. Us. Everything. You saved us, he corrected, his voice low. I'm just the lucky bastard who gets to keep up. She laughed, and they stood there, wrapped in each other, the future wide open. Amara had started a fund for black women in finance, her dad's legacy living on. Jude was learning to trust, to love without fear. They weren't perfect, but they were real. Epilogue. A year later, Amara and Jude stood at the opening of Brooks Tower, a sleek skyscraper that symbolized their comeback. The press called them New York's power couple, but to each other, they were just Mara and Jude partners, lovers, fighters. Lila, now a rising comedy star, emceed the event. Joking. I told you all my sister was a queen, Jude. You are still on probation. Though, Amara laughed, her hand in Jude's, her heart full. They'd faced scandal, betrayal, and their own demons. But they'd come out stronger. Love wasn't a contract, it was a choice. One they made every day. Damn, y'all. What a ride. Jude and Amara went from heartbreak to forever proving love can conquer even the messiest drama. See your favorite moment, the rain-soaked kiss or the rooftop proposal. Hit that subscribe button and comment your thoughts. Team Amara, Team Jude, or Team Lila S. Roasts. We've got more stories to melt your heart, so stay tuned.